How's it going, everybody? Welcome back. CoolZone edition 3, 4. I lost track of all of them. So we'll get into things in a little bit. Let me switch this music over. This is the final boss. Finish the fight. Good to see everybody in the chat here. Is my chat working? Things broken? Let me restart this. All right, we're back. It's working. We'll get started in a second. So, you guys are having fun in the chat with the emotion. So we'll get started. Ooh, we got the Princess Castle. Jeff, good to see you. Yeah, so let's just do a quick maybe recap. So I did actually finish up and wrap up the thing from last week. Did an angle or like another shot or whatever with this skulls one. So we were doing the curvature, scatter, pog, and noise to add like some weathering effects and stuff like that with redshift. So with the curvature node for redshift, switching between this kind of porcelain ceramic material and then the gold luxurious material. I'm still rendering a couple other, usually I like to do a couple different angles of each of my experiments or whatever. It's like you have something in 3D, you might as well move things around and take other pictures of it. Thank you, Kieran. Yeah, it's turning out pretty well. This was another more macro angle. Yeah, Daria. How's it going in Berlin? So this was just like a more macro one, and then I have some other rendering stuff like that happening over there. You guys like your techno music in Berlin, right? So getting some nice like very creamy depth of field with this one. Whoa. Thank you for the gift subs, Brando. Got any gifters in the chat? Yeah, so I was just getting some nice like grunge and transitions and stuff like that with this one. All the other guys here, they're more into it. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. I like to sometimes check out some of that Berlin techno or whatever when I'm working. Just like minimal. I don't know. It's not necessarily minimal, but it's just like no vocals, and it's nice to bang stuff out too. Yeah, so I have that one, and then that like grains thing from a while back. Still working on finishing that one up. It's like redoing lighting and stuff like that right now. I might tweak some stuff to it, but it's starting to, I got the lighting working better. It's a little bit more readable and like simplified the shapes and stuff like that. So it's looking a little bit better. It takes a while to render just because it's like a lot of particles is like 20 million or something. Do I have a playlist for the music? It's always super chill. I could maybe, I don't have it like that well organized. Yeah, I don't know, I might even do like some crops of it or multiple camera angles, like even doing like kind of anamorphic wide angle like landscape or something like that. I was even thinking like maybe retiming it and like putting in some little characters, so it's like going super slow and it gives it more of like a sense of scale. Yeah, that'd be cool, like panning. So it's like someone down here looking up, and then like the camera exposes the whole thing. It's like the cocaine Mount Rushmore crumbling down. So yeah, then there was this like kind of stepping or like lines artifacts, and then the way that I fixed that was just like post simulation. You can add a little jitter. Like I haven't re-rendered it yet after making the fix, but just jittering the point position after the render or after the simulation before the render. And then like you might get penetrations, but for the scale and everything, like it doesn't matter if stuff is sticking together. Like it kind of just makes it look more clumpy and stuff, so it's even better. But yeah, I was thinking about putting a guy there, or maybe like even having drones flying around like with spotlights, like illuminating different parts of him or something. Like just some ideas to give it a sense of scale and stuff like that. So I think we'll keep doing some grain or particle type stuff today. I have some ideas that I'm playing around with. We'll get to that. Yeah, the crack in the middle turned out well. It wasn't intentional, like it wasn't by design in my simulation. It just kind of happened that way. I think, I don't know, I got lucky with the settings, I guess. But yeah, it's like a headache, a head splitting headache or something like that. There's also the crack. Yeah, I mean, thinking about it now, there's ways I could have art directed it and stuff, but like doing simulations in real life or in computer graphics, what I mean like simulations in real life is like actually mixing fluids and like cracking powder and stuff like that. Like sometimes you just do something enough times until you get lucky or you get the results that you want. Like I've seen videos of like still life, like high-speed photographers slamming paints, like jars of paint into each other, and then they'll do like 100 takes just to get like one nice looking one, or they'll even go into Photoshop and like steal stuff from one and he is the crackhead. So true. So there's also something I wanted to show that was one of my older R&D development things or whatever. So I was out shopping this morning picking up things, and you guys ever go to Costco? I don't know if they have that in the CoolZone. Alex, good to see you again. Saw you in that Houdini hug presentation this morning. Yeah, so I was out at Costco. Like, I don't know if they have them in every country, but it's the place to go for getting like everything at a cheap price. And then even they're like all the different alcohols and stuff like that. It's like half price or something. I happened to see this rare artifact. It's like, let me see if I can get it all the way. So this is like a high-end kind of tequila. So it reminded me of an old like commercial or project that I was working on. So this bottle it has very interesting like bevels in it and stuff like that. Just the way that the glass distorts things and moves around and everything like that. You could do like a simulation bingo or something where, I don't know, where every new simulation you have to run is like, you have to take a shot until you either pass out or you finish your effect. But yeah, this was an old commercial that I did for this company that I don't know, I've kind of advertised myself into becoming their bigger customer. But I think they couldn't get like clearance for the music that they used for the commercial or something like that. So they never released it. I had to make it private or whatever. One of the producers got mad at me for posting the video. So don't show it to too many people. It never got like cleared or whatever fully. But yeah, it was a pretty interesting thing. They had tried to do this, like smashing the bottle in real life and then slow it down and reverse it and stuff like that, but they couldn't get a high enough frame rate with their camera, and it still, you could never get like slow enough that what they wanted to. So I ended up doing the thing in Houdini. It was like a super quick project, just like a week turnaround or whatever. So it was pretty fun just going in and like working rapid pace or whatever. Yeah, I mean, they had their footage. They had their footage that they shot on set, and then like HDRI and like all that information from the shoot. Someone, I mean, it doesn't belong to me anymore, but yeah, one of their modelers there refined the geometry and stuff like that. So this is modeled like well enough, and with the typography and everything like that. Somehow my player broke. Vimeo is garbage. But with the like bevels and all of that stuff, you get really interesting distortions. And then with the shattering, let me see if it shows up, but I spend a lot of time getting like the edge detail, like cracking and stuff like that in there. So basically, like if you just have a single crack, I think this was before the Boolean node was in Houdini. But basically the more little chunkiness and like little fractures and extra little jagged faces is super nice to see those, or even animate them growing, because that's what makes them kind of turn white from all the spec hits and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't that good with pyro at the time. Like ideally with effects, you have the 3 layers of like big chunks, particles, and then pyro, and you set those up well enough that your eyes can't see the transition between those 3 simulations. I don't remember. This was like 5 years ago. I think they had packed. I don't remember. But yeah, it was basically a pop force. I had the pop curve force, I think, or something. Vop's recreation of it, and was just directing like everything along the spline out of the frame that way. And then the particles and stuff like that were a secondary simulation. So like if you do a SOP solver, you can detect when these edges separate, or when the distance between them like goes above a certain threshold, and then you just emit particles from them, and then you can do little debris and stuff like that. You don't really notice. You could see like some clicking here a little bit. I didn't really have time to fix, but overall this was never completely finalized because the commercial didn't get released, but like even a flame compositor or someone might be able to finesse that stuff to work a little bit better. But yeah, I just got reminded of it with this. Anytime I see this at the store, I get trapped into buying it because it just reminds me of that commercial. It tastes pretty good. So we'll get started in maybe like 5 more minutes. There's also a new breakdown reel that I saw that I wanted to share with you guys. This was what do you think about the hug presentation? It was pretty good. I was working like on and off during it, and I was in a call for part of it, so I didn't get it was hard for me to follow all of the like slides of the presentation. But it seems like super valuable information that he was providing with DOPS. So like he had like an 86 slide deck of documentation, or like his internal research and stuff like that. So it's super valuable information, but it's definitely very advanced knowledge and stuff like that. So it might not make a lot of sense if you're like just starting out with Houdini, or you don't have a lot of experience with DOPS. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty good presentation. It's good to see people going like pretty pretty deep into everything like that. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. It seems like that guy's pretty into just going like over the top with the technical stuff. That animating a box thing I always got a kick out of, where it was like, let's just overdo every single aspect of how we might animate this box. So this was a reel or breakdown that I saw recently that was like this other Russian company. It's called Main Road Post Effects. And they put together some of the like best looking destructions by far. A lot of good volumetric work and stuff like that. I think they just released this a couple days ago or something like that. Yeah, their work's always pretty incredible. They're a pretty big Houdini facility, I think. Like, I've seen other breakdowns by them, and even laying out the city, like they make like procedural tools to design and generate the apartment buildings, and then they can lay them out. So like, I don't know, once everyone adopts like that workflow and stuff, it just makes your facility a lot more powerful, because you can exchange assets like a lot easier, instead of someone from Maya having to save out in Alembic and change stuff like that. It just becomes a lot easier to work when everything's like that. Yeah, I think rendering in Mantra is pretty popular for a lot of effects. Like, you just have a lot of control over adding extra detail and noise and stuff like that in with Pyro, and I think I've seen clouds that they've rendered and stuff like that before as well, and that stuff looks pretty cool. Also, just from a financial standpoint, like if you have a pretty big CPU farm, it's a free renderer or whatever that comes with your Houdini license, so it makes financial sense. But yeah, I just see some amazing, like really good looking pyrotechnics. This stuff I think is actually pretty old. Like this, they did this 6 or 7 years ago or something, but they did a really good job with the flames there. 6 terabyte cache. Yeah, I mean, it's some of the smoke simulations and stuff like that just becomes so much data to manage and move around and stuff like that. I think it might have been the Godzilla movie in 2013 or 2014 or something like that. They were saying that this was a different company that was working on it, but they were saying they would like render it, do the simulation, render it, show it in dailies, like, and as soon as the render was done, all of the cache of volumetric stuff would get deleted, so that like you just didn't have space to store multiple versions and stuff like that. I don't know the latest Godzilla. Put 1 in diffuse limit in Mantra and you will never finish the animation. Yeah, like you can't really do diffuse limit of higher than 0, or like sometimes what people do for this indirect illumination is they'll blur the emissive volume like in SOPs, and then just use that as an additional temperature or like emission attribute, so you're not like rendering that calculation or that scattered indirect illumination in your pyro. So there's like hacks that a lot of the bigger facilities have to work around the slowness of Mantra, and then having good compositors and stuff that can put it in, and then a powerful like CPU farm. But if you're just working with like as one person without just one workstation, it's not really that realistic to try to, I mean, it's good for learning, but if you're trying to actually get jobs and deliver stuff to clients in a timely fashion, it's not that realistic. So what is this? All right, we're already like pretty far in. We'll get started. So I was going to go back into kind of the grains or particles world with just this CoolZone stuff. Who are new people in the chat. This every Friday I just kind of try to make like a freeform kind of like loose sketch, just like a daily art Instagram style thing. Trying to get better where I finish it and do everything in the one session, but the last few ones I've done, I've just wanted to go in and like tweak them and stuff like that after the stream, just to get them looking better. I'm like trying to get some kind of like marketing material or just interesting stuff that catches people's eyes to build this community and stuff. So I'm like, want it to look really good. I don't just want to put out trash. So that's why sometimes I put out, I like do my own tweaks or whatever to it after the fact. Yeah, so we'll just do perfection. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough to the CoolZone. Yeah, so the CoolZone, it was originally based off of a different meme or whatever that was like based off of when unemployment gets above a certain threshold and certain factors align in the society, it's said that they've achieved a CoolZone period, which I think the inventor of it was saying is it's kind of like a revolutionary potential period. So what I'll do here is just make all geometry. I usually do that instead of all points, just in case I eventually decide to create constraints or stuff like that. It will get included in the simulation. So most times I find that there's no reason to do all points. Like you might as well do all geometry, because then you'll get the constraints. And then just do $ simulation frame equals 1. If you hold shift, you can even evaluate, shift and click on it. You can even evaluate like expressions, like their animations. It's a little trick or whatever, just to double check or debug them. So that will just basically say on the first frame, when the first frame is 1, on the first frame, emit or create my particles. So we have our basic simulation. So I might try just the pop force, some noise. So this one does curl noise, which is a special kind of noise that's like designed to look as close to a fluid simulation as possible without actually doing a simulation. So like everything will try to move like it's a fluid kind of, if that makes sense. Like other noises, things will bunch up more and get pushed together and you might get strands, but the curl noise tries to preserve like the spacing of everything a little bit better. Yeah, so you could do that. If you just do this pop bop, then you can access all your forces as well. The one thing I think you might have to be careful of is like, you just want to update the forces using this add wind force node or subnetwork or whatever. Because that will take drag into effect in the way that it updates these as special parameters for the particle solver. If you look inside of this one, they're doing the same thing. They might just be updating force directly, it looks like. So you might just want to take that into precaution or be careful about it. But yeah, there's a couple different ways to update forces with particles that have different effects. Yeah, so the pop bop or pop force, you can unlock this node as well. Like if I just do allow editing of contents and go all the way into here, then I could change this to a different setting, or I could just replace this node. It's just whatever is up to you. I'll just go back, match this current definition. That just kind of resyncs it back with the factory defaults or whatever. So I might want like some additional interesting stuff happening. Just like default particles are a little bit boring or uninteresting, or it's been done before or whatever. So we'll just add the grains. Maybe we'll switch to Vellum. I feel like that you might get even better dynamics and stuff like that. So the which one is it? Just Vellum configure grain. So that piece that I was showing earlier with the guy, the crackhead, the cocaine god falling apart, that was Vellum. Like I started that out with grains, but then I realized Vellum was behaving a little bit better. I think it's just a little bit faster maybe, and then the that was someone else's joke in the chat. I want to steal their credit. Yeah, I could approach Narcos and have that be their title animation. What facility is it? Like forget the name of Imaginary Forces. They do all those title screens for a lot of like Premiere TV or I forget what it's called, Premiere Television or whatever. They do a lot of these animations and they do a really good job with just like nice cinematography. If you're ever looking for animation and references and stuff like that, this company is a really cool reference to use for examples or to get ideas or whatever. So we have our Vellum. So the only difference I think between the grain source and the Vellum source is that it will add some mass and some extra attributes that the Vellum solver recognizes. Other than that, everything is like essentially the same. So even you can see like the point positions, and if I'm using the point separation, it looks the same. And then inside of here, I think we can just ditch everything, do Vellum objects, do Vellum solver. So the Vellum object's nice because it's already configured to fetch everything that we need. 2 a.m. now. Sorry for the people on the west side of in Asia or Western European, or Eastern European. I was thinking about doing some other time period, like other time slots for the stream, but right now with my schedule, this seems to work the best. So we can replicate everything if we just do a pop force. We usually just put it into the particle forces node. If you are interested in DOPS, like the one Arconin was getting into it, like just going into some solvers and like tools and stuff that Houdini has built. It's a good way to see how they set up stuff or learn stuff or whatever. Thank you for the sacrifice. It's like a alarm clock. Don't go to bed, keep learning. So we'll do everything right here. Maybe OpenCL is on, parts of it is using OpenCL, so that's good. Did I ever use Pop Fluid? I've used it sometimes. They used to even have an older one. I've found that you can get good results for it, like out of the box, kind of. But then anytime I've tried to tweak like surface tension to kind of art direct it, it always kind of like explodes on me a little bit. I don't know if I'm abusing portions of it and stuff like that. But generally I just end up moving to like the full flip if I need that kind of dynamics. But I've seen pretty good results. Like in my mind, this one will work really well for like condensation examples, or like droplets on a Coke can, or droplets on the camera lens or something like that, where they're just like falling down. Very specific scenarios, but then trying to push it out of that range of scale for effects, it's always kind of blown up on me before. So just go back to our noise. I mean, we could try it here and just see what happens. So it looks like it's applying like maybe additional particle separation. I don't know, it might be, there's like other attributes and stuff like that at play, so it might be overriding stuff. Might not be a good idea. I'm gonna get rid of it. So with this kind of stuff, if I want interactions, like usually going into these attraction. So this will treat the particles like they want to stay together, but it's a little bit different than the pop fluid. Like instead of, you kind of get like fluid motion, but it's not as like blobby or jiggly. It's more rigid, like clumped sand together, like wet sand or wet dirt or something like that. A little more flaky, yeah. So this was the kind of idea that that I was doing to get that guy, the head statue falling apart, shattering. But I was just overriding this clump strength or attraction weight using an attribute. That's kind of like a soapy film or like a confetti or something like that. Sometimes after the simulation, I'll put spheres onto the points. I prefer that over the sprites, because like these will actually respond to lighting, whereas the sprites will it's just like a picture that you're assigning to them. Yeah, so it's kind of like styrofoam, or I don't know, like it's a pretty interesting like abstract material, I guess. And then I usually just pin my scene view at that outside of the DOP network to make sure the spheres are always copied onto the things. Yeah, so different attraction scales. You'll just get like finer, flakier kind of breakups, or more chunky, solid kind of effects. So I think I've even seen recent tutorials where they do like ripping effects and things like that. So you can get really, really nice, cool results and stuff like that out of this. So maybe we'll go a little bit more detail. We're still kind of working in real time or whatever, so it's Vellum is nice with the OpenCL, it's pretty fast. Sometimes working with these attraction strength and clumping or whatever you want to call it, adding more substeps will help get you better shapes or fix some of that fuzziness. Like it looks like everything is completely staying together now. Basically, if the solver doesn't have enough substeps to apply the attraction you want, it will just like kind of fuzz out a little bit more. It is slowing things down a little bit, which might be a bit concerning. You're saying it looks like soapy foam? Yeah, you can do it, I think, with like beer foam or soap bubbles. Like you could get pretty realistic simulations with this type of stuff. OpenCL sims are less accurate to CPU sims. Is there a big difference to worry about? I don't think so. I mean, we could do some tests and stuff like that, but they give you pretty similar results. Like, let's take a look at this on frame 32, and we have that rough kind of shape. Then if I turn off OpenCL, go up to frame 32, it should look pretty much the same. I'm not entirely sure what you mean by losing accuracy. Like sometimes things are performed with half 32-bit, like instead of 32-bit, it's 16-bit float precision or something. You think I have to change the kernel options too? Yeah, I'm not. I don't ever change that stuff too much, but I mean, I could try emptying it out. Yeah, I mean, with grains, it's a little bit easier to see because the OpenCL is just a single toggle that will change everything. But in general, I don't think that there's too much of like a end result difference. Like even with Pyro, it's just a slightly different. Yeah, I guess it's still looking roughly the same. Just get that back to how it was. So the only thing that I see it causing a difference with is like just certain things aren't supported with OpenCL. Like the sparse smoke solver won't work with OpenCL. And then if you look at the documentation for like flip or grains, like certain attributes, you can't use point attributes to override certain parameters. Not all of them, but just a couple of them. They don't work. Like it's just only has one global setting if you're doing OpenCL. But like side effects has done a good job getting accuracy, like parity between a CPU and a GPU simulation. But if you're comparing other things, like NVIDIA has the some kind of like GPU X physics or something like that. And those, I would say you would not, it's just designed for games more to be like as quick and dirty as possible. So the results are a bit odd sometimes. But with this kind of stuff, like the side effects OpenCL implementations usually match the results pretty closely between GPU and CPU. Yeah, I mean, that's why like I set up this workstation mainly for simulations. So that's why I wanted as much GPU RAM as possible. Because like Houdini OpenCL doesn't share the memory between multiple graphics cards. So just having, and it can only use one graphics card for the operations. So just getting one super powerful one makes the most sense. Like for Redshift and other things, it makes more sense to get a lot of cheaper ones, but for this situation and then just doing like live streaming, it helps everyone see the results like as quick as possible. But this might look a little bit funky if our amplitude is like always being applied. So we could just use the same expression that we were using with our pop emission before on the force, so that this will be like an explosion, kind of like it will just apply the force or add it to the particles on one frame, and then they'll be able to like drift around or reconnect or whatever. It's some more interesting layouts or patterns or whatever doing things that way. So instead of continuous, everything on this node will just happen on the first frame. So one thing with simulations and applying forces, just making small changes, you'll get like drastically different results. Like with Pyro, if you're adding turbulence to it, instead of constantly adding turbulence, if you just pulse or like do a sine wave to gradually add and not add turbulence to it, you can get maybe more natural looking results. Like, I don't know, it's a lot of tricks from simulations, is just things that you get results that look more complex, but then like the way that you achieve them is by like subtracting or like simplifying things a little bit, I guess. It's exploding grapes. So let's think about this a little bit. So maybe if this is like the so it has layers to it, maybe. So if we look at the length of the point position, this is just going to give us the distance that the particles are from the origin. So like the center of your world is 0, 0, 0. If you just look at the length of each position coordinate, it just says how far am I from the origin. And then if we do a noise using the distance as an input, see what happens. You start to get like some science diagram of like the Earth like a gobstopper, a jawbreaker or something like that. Just this thing that has different layers or different shells or crusts or something like that. You can also do, sometimes if you do round to integer, rint, if you do a big enough, maybe I need to multiply this one as well. So what this one can do, I might have messed everything up. Let me get my spreadsheet up here. So what I'm trying to do with this is like quantize the noise or snap it to different values. It doesn't seem to be working. Maybe I need to make sure that it's a float. Just adding all of the conversions and operations and stuff like that. I think I'm just getting random numbers. All right, there we go. So this, I just was going too high of a value at the start. So what I mean by doing the round to integer is that this value goes from here to here kind of instantly. It doesn't have a smooth transition or gradient. So I don't think I need that one anymore. Probably not this one anymore as well. Yeah. So if this maybe makes sense, is we're limiting the distance position value to only be integer values or integer steps, and then computing the noise based off of those kind of like stair-stepping function or whatever. So if we do this, when we explode it, then we see some interesting shells or crust or whatever. So I'm just gonna grab this stuff, keep working in another chain. Sometimes I do that just to branch off with different ideas. So I kind of like that initial burst idea, but I think for right now I'm gonna keep it at continuous. Yeah, I was starting to think about mapping that noise or the color values to drive other attributes. So it's like the nicest part of Houdini is that you can, it's like a candy or something, a dessert. You can, like, I don't know, it's like you're doing circuits or synthesizers or stuff like that. You can like hardwire and cross wires together and get a bunch of stuff driving other stuff and get like really cool results with Houdini. A lot of other software packages, it's a lot harder to like just go out of the box and do things like that. You guys end up changing the same chain and then liking older versions of the sim and getting back to it. Yeah, I think it just depends on your workflow as well. Like sometimes you can have a pipeline or a shelf tool that will like record a movie and save a backup and like stash that away as a iteration or something. So some people like to work that way or just like versioning up the file. It just depends. Like working like I am right now, it's just more like brainstorming. You're just trying to get stuff out and done, like get in this creative space as long and as quick as possible. So I mean, stay in it for as long as possible and then just be in that zone for like wrap it up quickly. Like you don't want to keep distracting yourself with technical Python scripts and stuff like that. Even like file saving, like not even using that dialog, just staying in the network view. I try to, that's kind of what I mean by stay in that zone. Stay in the cool zone. Just never leave the cool zone. Yeah, so we have the color that we're assigning to this. So one thing you can do if you want to inspect it, if I do like E plus equals maybe this O noise, it's like original Perlin noise. But for this one, if I use the color as an input coordinate to it, then I kind of have this exploded view where I can see all the different, each individual color gets its own offset or value. I think I want to switch this to vector to make sure it's giving me like a 3D kind of offset. You want the lens flare? Yeah, I guess it is kind of a, there we go. It was kind of a lens flare. We're back in the grape land. So you can see what I mean if I don't do this as an integer. All of these numbers are getting smoothed or interpolated together, all of the colors. But I'm doing that round to integer to get clean, very crisp, like bands, more of like an onion, like skin, the skin of it, the peels of an onion or whatever. The bloomin' onion. You might want to try, so if I change this number, I'll basically get less shells. The lower frequency noise, you get less things. And then if I just add different numbers, like random offsets or seeds, then I'll get different colors essentially. So I could even make this into a parameter. So if I just want that to be like a slider, usually I just do SD for seed. It's like an abbreviation or whatever. So now as I change this, I get different patterns, different color values or whatever like that. You could even do some of the fancy ramps and stuff like that I was doing from the other, some of the other scenes. The cool galaxy. We're in the orbit of the cool galaxy. But yeah, this is just kind of like working as an exploded view SOP, kind of, just to see the bands and separate them out a little bit and see what happens. Yeah, so I want to use this color maybe to affect the clump attraction. If you go in here and hover your mouse over these values, then you can see what the actual, like this parameter colon attraction stiffness, that's the actual attribute that I need to set to modify things. There's attraction stiffness. Just copy this over here. Won't do that just yet. So usually I'll just try setting it to a funky value or something like that, just to make sure that it's working. So if you set things to like really low numbers or really high numbers to kind of break them, it's a quick way to just verify that your things are working as you expect them. I might go into less particles for right now, just to work a little bit more quickly. So I have some doubts right now that this is working properly. So I set it to 550, that should be a crazy high number. Then I'm just setting it back to 0 right now. So you can also go to the, yeah, it looks pretty much the same. So if you look at this page of the docs, this will kind of verify what I was thinking about. Yeah, it's possible I also need to set the other one that was like attraction weight as a point attribute. So if I search for attract, I didn't see it. Let me just search for clump. Stiffness. You saw stiffness? Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily a constraint attribute. I don't know. I'm getting lost. I think it has to be a geometry attribute. Targeting. Let me take another look inside of here. Hopefully I'm not steering everyone down the wrong path. So there's attraction weight, attraction stiffness. I think I was just using the same one that I was using for grains last time. There's strength, traction stiffness, attraction weight. Let's put those things in. I might have also just done like a spelling mistake. So we have attraction weight, attraction stiffness, both of them at 0. Now it looks like they're not working, and it's just regular. Let's try this. It might be that they both need to exist on the geometry. There we go. Now it's working. So that's why I'm usually setting these to just like set them to crazy values, make sure that they're working before you start playing around with them too much. Otherwise, like you might be doing something, you might not be doing something you think you're doing, and you wasting time. Kind of, it's happened to me before. It's frustrating. So now what we can do is take. Why didn't those attributes show up on the original page? I think maybe the side effects documentation might not be fully documented or fully up to date. I'm not sure. Email the side effects support and ask them for help. I don't know, maybe you think it's just weight, Kieran? We'll give this a try. We'll just do weight equals 51. I don't want to do this position mode. We're in area 51. Just remove stiffness. Oh, so this looks like the weight might be having some effect, but I'm also setting numbers here, which makes it a little bit more complicated. Let's give that a try. Just take this for a second and just try weight. I don't know if it's just let's try 0. Yeah, I can link to it. I'm in the process of updating it to a new website, but it's still somewhat useful, I guess. Do you think it's just weight, Kieran? What happened here? It blew up. The numbers were too high. Sometimes if you have your weights, attributes and stuff like that too high with grains, it will blow up. So let's just keep it going with this one. Thank you. Yeah, glad you're enjoying it, Cyber. So instead of adding this noise to the position, try doing another color visualization of things. You can do it off of this like exploded view, maybe if you really want to examine the results. I don't know how famous it made me. I don't know what happened with it, but somehow it gained traction. It's like a super old website that's not that well set up. Dr. Robotvinik, thanks for coming in the chat. Yeah, I'm trying to get stuff going on Twitch. It seems like good potential for building like a hive mind, making some cool stuff. So I'm just examining the different. Mr. Wazo, Fridays is proceeding well. So instead of doing it to this, that was just my visualization to kind of separate them out. What I can do here is just set my attraction weight based off of this. I don't want it to be a vector. That's why it was yelling at me, because it's saying you have a float attribute here, but you're trying to shove a vector into it. I don't like it. So if you just look here, you can see we have some different values. Haven't seen any Houdini content. I'm trying to pave the way. I've seen some other even seen like ZBrush and other companies making channels and stuff like that. Like Side Effects has a channel, but they haven't really started using it too much. Yeah, I don't know. It's not. It took me a while to get used to the chat and all of that stuff, but I think it's nice to be able to interact with people while you're going. So I have a feeling my numbers, like I'm multiplying the noise by a little bit. I don't know XRA. I've been following a few other Houdini people, but it seems like most of them, like, there's some French people that I can't understand what they're saying. I know like 5 words in French. There's one guy that just does like, he doesn't explain what he's doing and then plays like really high tempo drum and bass. I'll have to look up XRA. So I think what I should be doing here is like remapping the noise. So just working with the raw value like this, sometimes it will get a bit hard to control. Yeah, I've followed Arvid, and I'll tune into his stuff sometimes. He does some cool like shading things with Houdini. What about P noise after the sim? You can do P noise after the sim. I don't think it will be as interesting because it's like more of just a deformer or like a post effects thing. The Twitch playback is bad. Sorry if it's the low bit rate. It says I'm doing. I think I'm pretty good on my end. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'd switch to YouTube. Streaming on YouTube one day. Just see how things go for a little bit. So usually I like to start doing noises before the simulation just to, because you get more interesting, like more dynamic results. So I'm going to use this fit function with the noise. I think it goes from like negative 0.5 to 0.5 or something, but I'm going to kind of clamp it down a little bit more. So if I just try Yeah. Oh, the VOD on Twitch isn't the best. The VOD player. Yeah, I think just their whole mechanism for. I think people don't use the VOD feature too much because, like, I don't know, people. It's not like YouTube, where YouTube started as a video hosting service. Like Twitch, the VODs were added like as an afterthought or something, so they just never got that well of support, that good of support. All right. I think we're getting some better values. So this way I can just make sure a little bit more what kind of results I'm getting. Like I know the results will be between 0 and 2, whereas when I originally was working just multiplying it by a number, you might get like really high numbers that are like 32 or something, that when you have too high of a weight value, the grain solver will blow up and you'll get like nans, or things will just shoot and disappear or whatever. So you can try this now with different seeds, and we'll get not only different colors, but because we're doing this noise based off of the color, like our noise coordinates change, so our results, everything changes, which is a cool, like that's what I kind of mean by everything linked together. You're just kind of creating, it's like building a funky synthesizer or something. Like you have all these wires crossed, so the result you get, you can just play different notes, try different things, and just experiment. So we'll go maybe lower again with the grain size, get some more detail and stuff. The one thing I am interested with the VODs with Twitch is like the clipping and highlighting feature. I feel like that's pretty cool, where like if you're, especially from like a Houdini standpoint, like it's almost like taking notes or stuff. Like you can make little, like if you were to write on a piece of paper, just a little summary of a portion of like coding or a useful 10 seconds or something, like just having a little library of like quick tips might be nice to build. You do that, Kieran? Yeah, I've been trying to clip some myself and just pass them around. So we have the color that's driving attraction weight. I guess kind of like VFX just. So let's try also maybe one thing we can do with this offset. If we do vex expressions, we can add them to the offset. So if I do offset plus equals CD, maybe I multiply it by a bigger number. This will take our color attribute and then sample our curl noise function at different positions or different coordinates. So we should, each layer or each color should be getting different forces or different movements kind of moving around, which might look cool. It's already pretty interesting here. It's like opening up the layers or whatever. It's somewhat interesting. I might go back off the substeps a little bit. So I'm not too interested right now in like physical accuracy. It's not like a simulation where we need things to actually be like accurately responding in a physically precise manner. Like we're not trying to recreate a physical material. So we're just making something abstract. So I can be a little bit more I can cheat a little bit with the substeps and just hack my way through things. So let's just try, as I type, you have like muscle memory in your fingers and you type the exact same seed or random numbers. So I'm gonna try making my noise the swirl size smaller, just so we have more kind of features. The smaller you make the swirl size, the more like swirls or details, I don't know, the more motion you see. So we could even go over the top, maybe with swirl size. We'll do swirl size times equals random CD. So we're using the color value to sample the noise at different positions, but also to modulate the swirl size. Maybe we'll multiply this by 5. So I know the random number function gives me results between 0 and 1. So if I multiply it by 5, each shell, each color, each layer will have a different pattern or different like frequency of chunks or of clumpiness when things fall apart. So we already have the one thing that's the like attraction weight that's changing clumpiness, but then the swirl size just adds another kind of layer of complexity. This is a pretty cool material. It's like packing foam or like modeling foam or something like that. Like, I'm also just going to convert this sphere. So sometimes when you don't, when you're working with like the default sphere and you go to convert it to volumes, you'll get like faceting or hard edges. So if you just do convert and then up the U and V samples when it converts, then you're basically just going to like a higher resolution source polygon. So you could even do some things that'd be pretty cool, like kind of referencing the PlayStation 5 things we were doing. Maybe different like illuminations or stuff like that, where the outermost shell isn't a color, or like it doesn't emit light, and then some of these things are like glowing for a little bit when they rip stuff up, like a hot core to the earth or something. Let's try upping the possible attraction weight. So instead of some having a possibility of 0, we'll go a little bit higher with the min and max. So you should just produce more structures, larger structures, more clumping this way. I feel like there was a toy or something that that had foam that looked like this. It was like Play-Doh or something, but it wasn't exact Play-Doh. You guys ever use it? Like this? Bum foam? You know what I'm talking about? I always wanted to eat it when I was growing up. It kind of sticks together like this. That foam, it's a big Kim Pog. You have another Tide Pod crisis. So let's try playing around with some of this stuff some more. Do a different seed. I'm also going to multiply the frequency of the noise up a little bit. Get the Kims going in the chat. So by doing this, I'm trying to get more layers, like more layers to the onion, more bands to my foam putty. Looks like we're having some trouble ripping this thing up right now. So maybe I'll back off the high maximum, high value of the remapping of attraction weight. So it's a little slower to see everything happen. I'm guessing because we've made our shells thinner and they're all like sampling different noise directions, or they're being pushed in different directions because they're thinner shells. It's like less force, so it's harder for it to rip itself apart. But it's happening eventually, and it's pretty cool. So maybe, I think the motion and everything's pretty cool. I think just our swirl size. So I'm gonna do plus equals. I'm gonna add this to the swirl size instead of multiplying it by it. Yeah, I'd be interested in doing the Houdini battles. I was looking at them last time. It'd be a fun time to play around in it. Like as I was watching the last one, the steampunk candy, I was like, thank you, yeah, that'd be great to suggest me. I was trying to think of what I would make as like a steampunk candy for it, but I was like stumped. That's my worst fear, is like you get creative block as soon as you have the prompt. You're like, all your creativity is zapped for that moment. You're like, oh no. Yeah, so I'm just trying to get bigger chunks overall. So what I did was do this additive instead of multiplicative for the swirl size. So instead of a possibility of 0 to 5, now we're going from like 4 to 9, essentially. So just changing the way that I'm compositing the noise pattern on top of my existing parameter value to just change the way that things are applied. So like if you're compositing images or like Photoshop, you have like hard light, multiply, add, like all those different ways to combine images. We're doing the same thing, but just with parameters. It's all kind of signal processing. And then I think I want it looks like this thing's easier to rip apart because our noise pattern is like more consolidated in certain directions with the bigger swirl size. There's more energy directed in specific areas. So I'll try to increase the attraction weight to get things sticking together a little bit more. Might have done too much. Do I use Photoshop and AE in Linux? I mean, I was never a big After Effects user. I'm just going to reduce the maximum possibility here for my attraction weight. So I was always more of a Nuke person. Nuke, like it works pretty well with Linux. It was because it was like developed or designed in Linux. But it's not as good for like motion design or motion graphics. Essentially, it's more of like your feature compositing pipeline, or it's just a more technical software overall. For Photoshop, they have this tool called Krita. Forgot how to type. So they have Krita. This is like a Photoshop alternative. There's GIMP as well, but I'm not a big GIMP fan. This one's pretty nice. You can use Vine or like any remote. You can also have it on if you have a Mac computer somewhere in your grasp, you can remote into it with like Google Remote Chrome or TeamViewer or Log Me in Hamachi or something. But I don't do too much work with this. Like I was planning just to use this for diagramming things. So like if I was explaining something here, I could very quickly go in and make diagrams, do math, things like that. I've heard good things about Fusion. Natron for the people. There's that. There's a ton of different stuff. But I think like I'm not doing too much advanced stuff with that Photoshop alternative. Usually I still have a Mac that I use for video encoding and stuff like that. So kind of just depends what options you have available to you. Yeah, I was also a comper when I was first starting out. I was always like trying to be a Houdini artist, but it just seems easier, especially, I don't know, at the time in LA. There was more just like last minute comp fix jobs or whatever that came up as a freelancer. And in college, I was lucky enough to have been educated or to learn Nuke. So I was like ready to go, just doing roto and rig removal and stuff like that. With Nuke, I kind of got my foot into the VFX that way, and then eventually just yelled at enough people that I was working with that were Houdini artists that they like were able to talk to the producer and get me to switch over. I think the first movie I was working on, I was able to do like lighting, VFX, like bullet simulations, and like wire removal and comping stuff. Getting to do like all the tasks for one thing. It was pretty fun. So I'm just playing around with the noise parameters and stuff like that right now. Just trying to get more interesting stuff happening. You did the same thing. Maybe that's the best strategy. It's like you're Fed, your undercover agent trying to infiltrate and then take over. So this stuff is starting to behave pretty cool, I think. We got any Feds in the chat? Have I been infiltrated? I was worried one time. I was ordering like references on explosions and fireworks and explosives and stuff like that. I got it mailed to like a different address because I didn't want to be flagged for having possibly bad, like you get put on a list if you order too much of that stuff. Dr. Robotnik. It's a mad scientist name that you have. Yeah, it's kind of like a golf ball explosion, I guess. I've seen some interesting slow motion reference of a golf ball where it like jiggles around and things like that. It's pretty cool. So I might be getting close to like moving to lighting and see what happens. Let me just save this. The typical bad habit of working for an hour in untitled.hip. So this is 2020. Real sloppy. It's this June 26th. Almost July. So I saved it, and then I'm just gonna try increasing the resolution even higher. and doing a flip book just to kind of see if we can kind of easily scale things up, just to get, if it behaves the same, it will be a better starting point for rendering and just more detail, more impressive overall to look at, kind of. So I'll let this guy, looks like we're still doing 4 or 5 seconds a frame or something like that. We're still working at a pretty reasonable speed. So I'll let this cook for a little bit. Get some water, I'll be right back. So it's looking pretty cool. Get like better detailed shapes and stuff like that with it clumped up like this. Yeah, so the desk I bought is I'm locked into standing mode, unfortunately. Let me see if I can find it. So at the time, I think I had the coupon to this CB2 company or whatever. I bought this one. It's not adjustable, so it depends on your height. Like, you kind of have to be able to line up to it pretty well. But yeah, it was like at the time I figured it was just more sturdy than like a flimsy kind of adjustable desk. And then in my apartment I just have another sitting desk with my laptop, so like just take breaks throughout the day if I need to sit down, handle emails or do other stuff, whatever, for a little bit. But like sitting down, because I'm pretty tall, I'm like 6'4" or 6'5" or something like that. It's just very hard to find a sitting desk without like a really weird concoction of like a chair that's boosted and like desk, like your monitors, you need risers for them and stuff like that. So I just never found sitting to be that comfortable for me. The best is like places I've worked at have the like Herman Miller adjustable stuff that has the motor like mechanical up and down or whatever. But for right now, I don't know. I just figured this made a lot of sense. So this might be better. I'm kind of, we lost a little bit of the big saddle stool. I've seen some interesting things, like it's like a unicycle, like motorcycle chair or something where you sit, you pull that up like a cowboy style or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. This one works well for me for right now. I've thought about getting like the Ergo. Yeah, this is just from my home. Like the endurance mat or something, like the little slip of foam that goes under your feet. That might help a little bit. So I'm just trying another flipbook, the PewDiePie chair. I haven't seen that. It's like a gamer. I see a lot of people with the gamer chairs that are like very very gamer colored. Like you have your fluorescent accents, the bright orange piping or like details on the back of the chair. It's like pretty much like a race car chair, like a NASCAR chair that they just attached wheels to. Old Chad on the elliptical. So I made some changes to the settings just to try to keep some bigger chunks. Like this thing was just losing too much of the form later on. I'm hoping this will give me a little bit more structure. Get a blood moving. You work like upside down, like a bat. And some people do that to like try to make themselves grow taller. you spend like 3 hours a day. So there's some like weird surgery that people do where they like get their bones broken and then they do that for like 5 hours a day to try to become like a 1 inch taller, or like a very small amount. So we're getting some bigger shapes here. This is a nice to see usually. Could get like one of the hammock like swing chairs or whatever. The egg-shaped things. You've heard of it? I don't know, there must be a proper name for it. Probably have to get it done by like a pretty sketchy doctor. Maybe Dr. Robotnik knows how to perform those types of surgeries. So this is pretty cool with the shapes we're getting. We might keep going with that. You guys know Dr. Disrespectful? Dr. Disrespect? I heard he was banned from Twitch today or something. I don't know what he did. Disco boots. You get the boots with the Dr. Disrespectful? He's like a gamer streamer, I think. Like a Warzone or Call of Duty or something like that. He's like, I think he's one of the most well-known ones or something like that. But I think I don't know if, like, I think the way that Twitch works is once a streamer gets banned, you can't show their content, but I don't know if I can. He did an intro that was like very VFX heavy, where it was like, it was the feds. You think he was a fed? He did a intro that was like full post-production, like a visual effects facility. Certainly had to have been involved in creating it. I don't know if I can find it that easily, but he was like paradropping. It was like the Call of Duty game scenario or whatever. Like you fly through the air in your parachute to drop in or whatever. I don't know if I can find it. All of his content is vanishing because someone blew his cover. Yeah, I don't know. It just happened this morning. I don't think anyone's said what happened or why or anything. Yeah, so this is cool. I think we might just go along with this. Like, it starts to kind of fall apart at 42 frames, but we could maybe do retiming or like just use the start portion or whatever of the simulation for our little Instagram effect or whatever. So let's do our caching. I usually just do this file cache. You can do like the attribute node to delete attributes. Sometimes it just has this stuff built in, which is pretty nice too. So basically I want to delete everything but except using this caret or the up arrow, like exclude. Delete everything with the star, the asterisk, except p-scale and velocity. Or I'm sorry, I think that's it. The caret, I think that's the name of the symbol, right? Is it? Right? Circumflex. Caret, like a 24 karat diamond or something. Got any Zoomers in the chat? Don't know what the typography is? One time I was calling the enter key, the return key, I said it the carriage return. And this guy that was younger than me looked at me like, he's like, what are you talking about? Like a horse carriage? I was like, no, like a typewriter carriage. He was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So usually just put it, I updated the default directory to be relative to my scene file. You guys are learning everything today, even about typography. One of my favorite things was when I was at Apple, one of the designers came in and he was advising people on like, they were doing a code syntax layout, and he was just like picking whatever brackets he liked like aesthetically. And he said, get some more Egyptian brackets in them. I was thinking about, I was like, well, I guess you could call that an Egyptian. He was talking about like the curly one. He was like a British guy, so it might just be that kind of like local dialect or something. But I was like, that's a fantastic thing to call it, the Egyptian, because it's like a hieroglyph kind of. I was thinking about that for like weeks after he said it. So I'll just name this grain cache. Sometimes like I'll just do a version in the node name itself, because this is using the $OS inside of it, so it will automatically make a directory with the version number. This isn't the best way to work if you're at a facility with like a team and stuff like that. But so this is what we're doing if you're just joining. Is that Edvino? Bom dia. I haven't seen you in a long time. So I started doing this grain simulation at the start of the stream using like setting up a shell or a bunch of different colored layers, and then driving a bunch of like attributes and forces and physical properties with it to get a kind of interesting like ripping apart effect. Now I'm just trying to cache and start to move into like lighting, rendering, post sim fixes and stuff like that. And also just having a casual discussion about fonts, typographic terms. Let me so I'm gonna search Egyptian brackets. I don't know, it doesn't. Oh, this guy might have had the similar thing happen to him. I think, I'm not gonna read this whole thing, but I think the same thing. Egyptian brackets. I think he's talking about something else, but you guys don't know this. It was this kind of bracket he was referring to as the Egyptian style of brackets. This is like a fancy hieroglyph. Thank you. Yeah, the sim is pretty detailed. I was working at like a lower resolution, and then I just increased the particle count, or reduced the separation size, and that did another flipbook. It's still like 5 seconds a frame to solve, but this one started to look pretty good. So maybe just do 96. Under the save filter, I'm just making sure to keep only the attributes that I need. So if we look at here, we have P and P scale. This frame is like 8 megabytes. If I do another null, I have a bunch of attributes that's 81 megabytes. This is like, if you just have a point position that's 3 values or 3 floats, and then you also have another attribute like hit normal that's 3 floats, that doubles your file size basically. It's all just data. It's like cleaning up these things makes a big difference in file size. Let me see if I still have, it didn't save my cache. I'm just gonna save my scene, do a new version, save in background, so it won't freeze my scene or whatever, and should cache pretty quickly. So I might want to use the color and other things like that, but the reason I didn't make like a rest attribute or anything, or even save the ID attribute, is because this point count isn't changing. So I can just use this and directly reference like the input geometry from my simulation. would set this up a little bit cleaner. And basically I just need like one static frame or one copy. And then if I did like rest position on this input, did rest over here, then we're automatically getting a rest and it would stick because it's always just copying it from our static geometry. So I could get the color attribute. So this is just more of a lightweight way of saving things. So instead of like each frame being a little bit heavier because it has all these extra attributes to it, this is just kind of a hack to save performance. So I think it's playing back a little bit slower than usual because it's still simulating, but that part should finish pretty soon. And then a lot of these other attributes like velocity, I can just derive that using a trail node. So this will just look at the difference of the two frames. It's probably better to do it up here just because it's like less nodes that it's cooking the difference between the two frames of. Yadira, it's good to see you come in. Thanks for stopping by. So maybe I'll do another wrangle here. This one, just visualize. The first time we were doing the length of the position to see how far it was from the origin. This time we can do the length of the velocity to see the speed of the points or just how fast they're moving. He put some good reference in the Discord. I didn't look. I was like kind of tied up before the stream. But I'll have to check it out. He was doing a good job finding the bubbles and dust tire spin out reference and stuff like that. Skadooks, good to see you. So I'm just gonna multiply the velocity from a smaller number to reduce it. Billy the reference guy. He's the reference king. He could go straight from being a visual effects artist, just skip that step and be a supervisor. Just show up to the facility and say, listen, I know what good effects look like. Don't waste my time having me make them. I'll just critique other people's work. So what I'm gonna do here is I'll start to layer this. So we have the velocity, and then I'm just gonna make another float channel that's gonna be like an animated mask. So if I just do channel frame, maybe I'll just call this blend. So that was the reference he did. So if I just look at the, oh man, this is like what I was. Is he was looking at the Discord, or he did this before I even started the thing? You could get something pretty similar to this, I think. It's MexD. I don't, MexD is in the chat? He's in the Discord. You guys are eating Tex-Mex? Oh, Skadooks, you're Billy. Oh, okay. You guys are confusing me over here. So I made the blend. Did you see that before this? You posted that before the stream started, or you just found it while I was? So with this blend, this is going to be a mask that I'm going to hand animate. So I'll just set a keyframe at the start of the simulation, and then I'll make another keyframe 30 frames in or something. You could do this with expressions or ramps and stuff, but like fit functions, but I don't know, this is nice to have a visual. You just have a lot more artistic control over it or whatever. Yeah, so you could probably retool some of this stuff to get something like that pretty nice. There's also the one guy like Graham on Vimeo, Graham Matthew Coulier. Like when the PBD, position-based dynamics or grain stuff was first coming out, he did a ton of interesting like skeletons coming out of the ground, like Game of Thrones style or something. He did a ton of really cool granular like zombies and stuff like that popping out of it. Vegan nuts. So it's good to see you in the Twitch channel. Eat these vegan nuts. Are all, I guess most nuts are vegan except these nuts. So so we'll what we're doing here is I have my original noise that's just a visualization of the speed of the velocity, and then I have the hand animation curve that I'm using as a mask. So what I want to do here is set up like a illumination for fast moving particles, but I only want it to happen at the start of the explosion or the start of the simulation. So that's what I'm trying to set up right now. I might not even, I don't know, maybe I should have just added drag or something to the simulation. To get things to stop eventually, but we're already pretty far in. We're just gonna keep pushing, see what happens. You're a big fan of George Washington Carver vegan nuts? So what I'll do now, maybe we want color, but we also want rest. And then I'll do an additional mask of CD that's based off of rest, or the length of rest. So if I do length, this will say make it kind of bright as it gets farther from the source origin, and then I can fit this function to kind of make the core really bright, but the further away ones, 0.75 or something, 0.6, will be black. So we'll start at 0 and then go to 1. We have a syntax error. Sometimes I make these commas instead of periods. And then I think our distances is a little messed up. So George Washington Carver is I think he like studied peanuts. He was like the original inventor. If you look him up, he has like 80 different peanut-based, like he invented peanut butter, like a bunch of other peanut-based products, I think. I'm just trying to get a nice chunk of the core and just visualize it here. So I'm making a mask essentially, so the outermost layer or shell it's I know a lot, but it's just random useless knowledge. So what I want to do is just kind of like carve out, I guess 1 is the maximum because we were working with like a unit sphere. So what I'm trying to do is just punch out the outer shell. You did some research on George Washington Carver. He's a really good figure. There's rumors that the feds killed him to steal his proprietary peanut-based recipes. This is like 100 years ago or something. I think they said he fell like falling down the stairs, but people have called it into question. So the particle separation size is 0.02. It's not really that meaningful if you're working at a different scale, but doing basically 750,000 particles or 3/4 of a million particles. You slipped on peanuts. Yeah, so now we have the shell separated from the core or the interior with this color. So I can multiply it against velocity. So the reason I'm doing this is that at the start, it will always be black. This is kind of like the PlayStation grains idea, where these whiter ones will poke through like a flower blooming or something like that. It's kind of like a reveal, or it's something you don't notice at first. I think this should be pretty interesting. Then we can add our animation mask back as well. So what this is doing, maybe I want it to tail off a little bit more. Only at the start we'll get this white kind of color or bright color injected into things, I think. So now it plays back a little bit faster. I guess the sphere stuff was slowing things down. Gems around, gems abound. The gem emoji. You just make a clip. Bust out that clipping tool if you spot a gem. There's the I think I need a few more. Sometimes I go into this gray background if I'm working. I don't know, maybe light. A bit hard on the eyes, but if you're working with like black and white, it will make things easier to see. Yeah, I need some more emoji slots once I get more sub points. If you guys anyone has Amazon Prime, you can link it to your Twitch account, and then you can subscribe using it for no cost to you. But it helps me out, and then I can get more sub points, which allows me to add more emotes to my channel. So I think this will work pretty well. Any primers in the chat? So I'm already starting with my color, so I could just switch this, instead of overriding, do a multiply again. So this way it will preserve those colors. We might want to do that. I'm actually just going to do new custom colors. I'm just going to grab that color palette file. If you guys, any old timers in the chat, you'll remember I have this color palettes hip file. So I'll just open it up and take a color ramp from there. I use this eye, the point on the eye, to block out his face so the feds couldn't ID him. So I think we use this one for that Beethoven bust. This thing could be cool. Some of these are a bit, this one's kind of nice. I think I might have used it before as well though. You can save presets with the gear. I don't know, I like to just have a file. I don't know if you can directly save them. You might need to mod it. With this gear, you can save presets. With this gear above your ramp, this actually points to a JSON file that's inside of your preference directory. If you know the JSON syntax, you can define and add ramps that way. But there's tools and stuff like that. Just depends on your workflow. I'm not a big I don't know. I'm not a big like OTL Houdini digital asset maker. It's like I work maybe too quickly and too dirty sometimes, but I usually just work this way. If someone asks me like to send me the color library, then I can just mail them the file. If someone's like, give me your presets, then it becomes a little bit more of like, oh, all right, now you have to configure, go into your Houdini directory. On Windows, it's this path. On Mac, it's this. On Linux, it just turns into a mess. I don't know. Sometimes I try to keep stuff simple. Color palette. Yeah, it's a nice little thing you can have in your back pocket, though. If you're like, check out all these colors I got. You're like the guy in the trench coat, like selling watches. Anybody want any colors? Any color palettes? So instead of using this Vellum, yeah, some people, you could make your own tool. It's a good learning, like Python learning exercise, or there's some online like shelf tools or just other ways that people have made to store them. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just in the habit of making a file with all of them in it. So instead of using the color to change this seed, we can use the rest. And again, we're going to do the trick to round it to an integer, so that instead of random values, we'll get like crisp blocks. And then instead of working in world space, we do the length. Then this is like kind of polar coordinates, or more of just distance. Like, so instead of blocking out, we'll just do a noise based off of this distance. So now I have my color. This guy is multiplying all of the existing colors, so we have a better color. So like the noise thing that I was doing earlier was more of just a visualization for my noise patterns, but using these purely random functions, you never get like that well of that nice looking of color palettes or whatever. And then this way it's just easier, like if you don't like one certain color, you can substitute it out for another pretty easily. So I don't think we want any black if we're already multiplying between the two. What do we get? Something like this could be somewhat nice. Boom, looks delicious. Chef's kiss. And then I'm gonna do a time blend. So this way, this will interpolate between frames, like we've just saved out integer frames. So this way we will have subframe information. And then if I just do a time shift at the very end, blue emissive, black on the, yeah, so I was thinking a little bit about it, just using this to drive illumination or intensity. You're also doing different hue shifts and stuff with the PlayStation one, like doing the code red version, the Microsoft Xbox version. All these new gaming systems look kind of bad. I don't know. Like even the Microsoft one, it's like just a PC tower, pretty much. KFC console. So maybe here, go to 41, and then just trying to do a quick kind of time ramp. There was a rumor Mr. KFC was going to make a gaming console. So I don't know what the best move is going to be here. I feel like doing something kind of like a bullet time effect. I didn't see the I didn't see the parody video, but I saw some stuff like that making the rounds of memes and stuff. So I think I just need to uncheck integer frames. Boom. Now we have our matrix Neo bullet time. That acceleration is always a bit weird. Let's just keep going with this and see what happens. So this is the KFC. It's like, this looks like an Apple commercial, the way that they lit it with the rim lighting and stuff like that. So on this material, I'll just make it redshift particles. It's a nice smoke. It looks a little bit too low. They need more voxels in their smoke simulation. The heat distortion stuff is pretty cool. Yeah, that bullet time is like a quick way for Instagram or stuff to increase the production value of your content. Those lighting and stuff is pretty similar to the way the PlayStation looked. $120 FPS chicken nuggets. Even the logo is a bit well done. Like this, it looks better than a lot of the actual products. I missed most the original Xbox, and not even this. Like the controller used to be even bigger than that. Not even that one. I think yeah, there it is. This is the best gaming controller that ever came out. Look at that. This is like a bootleg thing or something. Even the startup of that console, like the blob, like this is probably the heyday or the high point of the console business. So with this material, I don't want to do it. I should have made the RS material builder. So now we have the material inside of a container. The Sega Dreamcast was definitely, it was a very close second. I would almost put that first. The like little pack that had the screen on it was pretty top tier. Like you would put a little Tamagotchi character on it or something that you would like feed when I'm not gaming. I bring my little it's like a chocobo or so, I don't know what it was. It was some little blobby guy. The Sony stuff, I mean, I had the PlayStation 1 and the PS2. I stopped after that, I think, but the PS2, that era, like Dreamcast, PS2, original Microsoft, Xbox, those are the best consoles. Undisputable. So I'm just going to pull in the color attribute, and instead of having it, typically people just plug that right into diffuse color, but we can go into overall emission color. This is pretty close to what we were doing with the PlayStation thing. And then you just need to make sure that you set this to 1. This gets multiplied by your emission color, so the black ones will automatically set it back down to 0. I'll just hold Control, click, make a camera. Just leave it where it is right now. Maybe just make a RS light to have something to light up the black, just like specular points. Just drop it Drop it in, drop it down. We should be good. See what happens. Do I need to get the rest attribute in SOPs in the shader? I don't think I need to do for this case, so that the color is stuck to it. I'm using the rest, maybe I should add that there just to be precise. But basically I'm using that rest attribute to compute the noise in SOPs, so it will automatically be stuck to should be stuck to my shader. I just need to assign it to the geometry. I should turn this to defaults, but I think this IPR live top level updates, it should be a little bit more cool to update. Yeah, I mean, if I was doing a redshift noise in the shader, then I would want the rest attribute, but I'm kind of baking the result of my noise into the color attribute of the geometry. And then I'm usually a fan of longer lenses. I feel like you just get more interesting compositions or stuff with it. Let's see what happens here. Kind of like a slime or something like that. So we might want, with our material, like this defaults to plastic. We want a little bit of roughness just to have more more specular highlights or more areas getting lit up by it. Then maybe diffuse, just turn that off. So we only have reflections and emission. Maybe the emission weight. Boom. This might be too much. So I'm trying to just get stuff burning out a little bit. I feel like that's the most successful part of that PlayStation look. Like when stuff is overexposed, essentially. We could set some stuff maybe with the post effects as well, but we'll just boost the intensity like that for right now. Let me see. So we might want to maybe do it to the length of the velocity. If I do a power, like exponential function on that, then we should get just more contrast. Things will become more dim more quickly. It's getting better. We're not like blowing everything out. Maybe with this length, do a similar thing. Turn on bloom for a minute. You think that will help? The photographic stuff is nice as well, like the tone mapping or whatever that they do with this allowed like overexposure. This is a super useful thing to be able to see that in the renderer. Boom! How? Got his ass. So wow. It's like the guy with the Maxwell audio commercial in his easy chair getting his hair flown back. Yeah, so you just want it to be really subtle, really low values or whatever, I think. THX logo. This is pretty cool. Even some of these shots you could like punch in already. Just hit that THT Instagram ready. Just like the THT. Oh, just like that? Where are you guys getting this boom emoji? It's quite nice. So maybe play around with these colors a little bit. Again, if I just add a random number to this. Just call this offset. It's kind of like a seed offset. Do that plus button. Oh my, I already had the seed. You have multiple ways of changing things. This way I can just iterate more quickly and try out different values. If maybe I have too many colors, it's a little too busy. If I decrease that frequency, the scale of my coordinate, then we'll get a more simple kind of color scheme. I feel like I should make a lighting desktop or something with this. It'd be nice to have the render view a little bit bigger. Somehow I lost my update when that happened. Gorgeous. Final, it's done. So I don't know about these colors. I'm getting a little too much Christmas. This is a little bit better. I think the green giving me too many Christmas vibes. Go more into the Baja Blast territory. Thanos blown up. Perfect for the next Xbox commercial with two-tone green. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is like a Taco Bell color scheme, right? We could approach Taco Bell and be like, you guys, you could outdo the Colonel, outdo KFC, and have your own thing. The Taco Bell is a pretty powerful brand. Like, they have some partnerships with Doritos, Mountain Dew, Baja Blast, Flamin' Hot. Like, they're a pretty extreme kind of brand. Let's go earlier. We need some way to get the exposure looking brighter at the start. So I think the shell stuff that I was doing, we want to just make the outer mask. This noise, I'm doing a distance-based mask, essentially. Just flip that around a little bit and try it out. Now we have more interesting stuff. It's pretty. It's a vegan food we're making. All of these are all like the tapioca. This balls in the drink, maybe. Chickpeas. This could be a vegan food-colored chickpea snack. Peanuts. Maybe if it was like irradiated peanuts, you put your peanuts in the microwave for 30 minutes and then they come out looking, this kind of thing happens. Yeah, so I don't know, the start of it's looking nice, but we might just want to like retime, only show the start of the animation. We're working as like a VFX editor kind of right now. We want to get to the explosion frame more quickly and then like hold on it a bit longer in like slow-mo zone. He found his peanut. That's why he was he discovered the yeah, I don't know, maybe it was like a magical, he discovered the secret recipe. So I'm just going to turn off the render view and preview the animation up here. But I think that's looking pretty cool. I mean, it might be a bit of a mess. I don't know if we want motion blur on or not, but we basically just want to like pause, hold on the content as much as possible before ramping back up. Maybe just light up at the beginning and then gradually go dim. Yeah, I'm trying to do that with my masks and animation and stuff. I might be able to do it like this was my hand animated Bob Ross. Bob Ross in the building. So this is just a user float that animation curve that we're globally applying to the colors. So I'm using this to artificially dim them. So I could make it turn off, like if I move this quicker, this is happening before the time remap, so it's a little bit misleading. But this way I can control when things go dim. Boom, turn off. I might be able to, I don't know how big of a mess it's gonna be, but if I just really like blast up, it should get it like really overexposed at the start, but it might be like with our lengths of velocity and stuff just overriding, because like multiplying is it's like a masking operation, like it will go to 0 and you'll never be able to recover values. But I think it's gonna glow like this stuff with this extra intensity should be booming. Metro, young Metro in the boom. Yeah, so I think this is going to be pretty interesting. I don't know. I'm gonna throw a curveball at us. So I think we have too many grain particles right now. I'll just save this file as it was. Go up a version here. Got my renderer. I'm gonna go back up to a higher grain size. So this one we're just gonna do like 50,000. I'm just trying to get less. I think this is going to look better with less particles. We might have to change my settings a little bit to get it to split apart still. False hopes. No, I think this will be a quick change. It should pay off. I think overall our particles are a bit too small compared to like the overall shape and everything. So we could change them like after the simulation and have them overlapping, but I don't think that's going to look as good. So we'll just do this version 2, save this as a new file. And then I should be quick enough. I can just save this in the current Houdini session. Yeah, this should work. It should just be a minute or something. So I think we were just getting like stuff that was looking a bit too busy, like too much detail. The specular hits are too much. I don't know. It's like seasoning. You just want to sprinkle them like a salt or something. You don't want them to be too distracting. Yeah, it's too much information visually for your eye to take in. Like it's too confusing, kind of, if you just show it to someone. Boom, everything still works. There it is. More of a party. So our bloom, our masks are a little bit messed up when the balsamic hits. So I'm just gonna try to level this instead of the exponent being as high. It's a little better. Then maybe this mask. I think we still want a little bit of a fall off. Yeah, we still want some fall off. This is really nice. I don't know what happens. We don't have a very good ending. We might just have to hold on a frame. There's no P scale. Oh, I did save P scale from the simulation, so it is a uniform. But I think you're right. The like specular hits and stuff are kind of making it look like there's smaller and bigger particles. We might want to, maybe this weight is a bit too high. We might want to go higher with the roughness. There's a few things we can do. So we'll go higher with the roughness. I'm gonna make another light. Just make it kind of symmetrical, but underneath things. So we're doing one light above, one light below, kind of a classic like product photography setup. If you, where did it go? Here it is. Looking at that Colonel Sanders commercial, they were doing a similar thing. This unveil here, just two grid lights on either side of it to get like a very symmetrical, clean composition. I might want to take my other light here and make it just bigger. Usually if I start changing the size, I do normalize intensity. It's like not really realistic when the way that, compared with like how photography works, but you don't have to balance as many parameters. So this one I'm kind of doing it like maybe it's a bounce card or something, like it's just a super big bottom of the table, just to get more shape into the particles. Maybe we want to, I don't know, let's try a bigger light at the top as well. I don't know. I think this is a little better just overall. A little bit more readable of a form. So I think maybe this animation here is just not working too well. Like we're artificially dimming everything and it looks a bit weird. I don't know. This might just work as like a 3-second animation and not work that well with there's no good end frame we have or something, or we just need to like shoot them off screen pretty quickly. Go back into the camera. Yeah, the very first part is like super satisfying and it would work well as just like a still frame or something like that. Let's just frame up the start of it. Yeah, it gets pretty gross pretty quickly. I think our glow is a bit wonky, a bit off right now as well. Like it's just looking a bit too cheap. The hidden darkness side of the, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty straight ripoff just from, you guys want to pop in the ASUS? I think I know how to use it now. Let's see what happens. I was just putting them in, this Redshift like user directory picker is super hard to use. I think I put them in ASUS config. Boom. We fixed it. I don't know. Might be a little bit better. I think with the ASUS stuff, you get a little bit more realistic, like color burnouts and roll-offs and stuff like that. With the sRGB, it just tends to like get a bit muddy. I don't know, it just tends to like look not photographic when it burns out. Maybe it's just our colors. This is like a Skittles territory now. You think they're overlapping? I thought I was baking it into the simulation. Is it not? It's not picking. Oh, I think I'm. I made a classic blunder. So I set my redshift to render them as particles, but then I was putting spheres onto them. It was a good catch, Corignan. So we're getting a little better. It's a little more organized and structured. I think my Baja Blast color isn't working too well. I'm gonna try to stay away from that blue, just because it's a little too like PlayStation, too close to what they were doing. We're kind of in watermelon territory now. It's like the one, there's some Xbox game that was like My Pinata or something, Viva Pinata, kind of like these colors. Brazil, yeah, it's like the what is it? What is it? There's like a name for, and it's more Jamaican. The favela music in Brazil. USA flag on top of it. This thing's a little bit better, I think. It's like a slime. I think I would need like more. Keep it global. So let's see what we're doing. They're not doing too well internationally right now. Less views. You think I'll get less views with the American flag? This is very appetizing right here. It's like a grape, red and green grapes. Yeah, so I'm thinking maybe just punching in close enough. Kind of like a black, yeah, it's like blackberries to different kinds of fruits. Let's try this. I'm just never letting it go completely black. Thank you for the 100 bits, vegan nuts. Thank you for setting it aside for me. Yeah, I don't know. We're getting some better shapes if we just don't slam down the colors as much. Still get some into it. I think that maybe just having like low frequency kind of pattern or colors might be helping us out a little bit. Thanks for setting your primes aside. This is a better frame right here, at least. We did something. There it is. That's feeling better. It's like Fruit Ninja. How? Maybe we want to try it with velocity. So I think under settings, we have the velocity attribute. We're also doing, our point count isn't changing, so we can do like deformation sampled velocities. So we'll do, I don't know if we need to turn on the particle one. We'll try it like this. I think we need the particle one. There it is. So now it's a little bit more, the frames are a little bit more interesting. How did I get the clusters of particles of viscosity or constraint within PopNet or something? Yeah, if you go to the start of this is when I set it up, but it's using basically a noise before the simulation to set the attraction weight of the particles. That's what allows them to clump up more than others. I might actually go up another version here. Turn off redshift for a second. I might play around with that a little bit more as well. Just to try to preserve the bigger chunks. I think what I'm kind of finding is like too much of the small blurry like individual ones are kind of just not making a very nice composition. It's a bit odd how it's like taking a second to come apart. The pulse length, I'm also just going to go really high with it, kind of in the thought that it will be disabled, like the noise texture won't be evolving or changing. Yeah, Vellum is super nice just for motion graphics, abstract effects, and then even like cloth realistic simulations. It's super flexible and fast. So this is a little bit better now. Let's go move our camera around. Could be cool getting this from this side where it like splits up like that. We might just want to like keyframe the particle scale down or animate it down. We'll just make another cache. Let's take a look. Boom. So my time remap is a bit off. This thing here, I think, maybe we just want one a little bit more natural. Amazing. Booyah. You saw the original Booyah movie, Kieran? Booyah! If you watch the version on YouTube, you can replicate this? Yes, you can. I'm also posting the HIP files on the Discord. If you look below the Twitch stream, there's a Discord panel or a link, and all of the files that go with my streams get posted into that channel of the Discord server. There's like a stream archive channel. I should be looking to get into. My Discord isn't too advanced. It's fairly basic. Like, there's stream archive that I'm just using, kind of like a RSS feed or like a publishing feed. So all the stream VODs get posted there along with the corresponding files, and like if I run into other thoughts that I think go with them, I'll post them there. And then the other channels, like there's a general modest. There's a general channel for like whatever you want to talk about. There's questions if you run into issues with the files or anything like that. Then there's suggestions like for topics you want me to talk about in the future. So it's just pretty straightforward, like discussions or whatever. You guys are rambling on the chat. So this is a little bit better. I think that part of the problem with this emission is it's feeling a little bit like sparks at the very end. So we might want to reintroduce our mask. And I think it needs to happen a bit earlier. I feel like it's not getting multiplied by my numbers or something. Maybe I just needed to click enter to update it. So it got way too short now. Classic blunder. It always gets weird when you're working like on top of retimes. I think that's gonna be more interesting. I'll turn off the redshift, so just get like a real-time playback. And then my trail, we're doing deformation-based motion blur, so I don't need to worry about the velocity attribute is wrong. After you retime stuff, you would want to recalculate V if you were using it for motion blur. But we're actually doing it on the like change in position, so we're okay. In this situation, I'm just gonna make a duplicate of this noise. Maybe just try some other settings. This thing could be cool. This is more of like an energy-based effect. Less appetizing, maybe. Let's see what happens when we introduce more colors again. I think my outer shell should be like a bit more strict. Flipped it around. I don't want to see any of this stripe stuff. I don't know. Something seems off. I think I know what's happening. So I want this offset to happen after the length. So this way it will keep things like radially coming out in the shell. If I was like offsetting after the length, and I was getting those lines or bars because of that. This is a little more dynamic, like interesting with the colors, I guess. Just the fall off of intensity of like indirect illumination and stuff. How? Too much. I think the like curve is working nicely, but I might just be multiplying too much in the shader. Like I like the speed that it's transitioning and like the fall off, but you were right, it might have been too hot. This bloom can also like blow things out sometimes too. The reflection roughness is fairly strong, and then my lights are somewhat big. You think it's going to be better? It might be better now that I have two lights and I sorted out like the P-scale issue. Might be better with less reflection roughness. It's like more negative space kind of. Let's go a bit. So I had a super big light on the bottom of things. Maybe going underneath. Go even smaller with it. It's a little bit more interesting. Yeah, everything's subjective. We could all collectively converge on a nice nice result though. The brain trust. I think this is just overall like we did some good improvements over the last half hour or so. Putting lipstick on this pig. So that ramp at the end is a bit wonky, how it like just turns off. The super low res, because it will have the emission applied. I think that's a good idea. Maybe also just going back to the black background. Sometimes I do like overexposure in the viewport. So Oh no. We got a crash. I don't even know if it went into the temporary directory. No, yeah, I think it was saved. Let's see. Saved? F's in the chat. W. Let's see. Saved. We did it. So just shove this into the same folder. B plus. Saved. So do a new version. We have the cache still linked up. There we are. Right back where we were. Yeah, so maybe we should do a low res render. I'm just thinking one more thing we might want to add is like depth of field. So we have all the cheats that we're doing to make things look good. The retime, glow, depth of field is like last minute, like just make it look impressive as possible. So in our camera, we just go to DOF enable, and then using this one right here, click to focus, shove that one somewhere, and that back off. Usually I go a little bit like anamorphic resolution. The power is just like how crisp or soft you want your bokeh to be. I played around with it a little bit, but right now with Redshift you need to update like a ton of low level like Linux variables to set it up, so I've been holding off on fully like switching over to it for a little bit. But it seems a lot better to be able to switch out like the viewport directly instead of doing panes like I'm doing right now. I think maybe let's try doing like a little bit of diffuse. And turning on GI. Might get a little bit more like blurry brightness in our illumination that way. Trying to get this going a little bit brighter. So let's try to change our depth of field. Maximum power. I think sometimes like I need to move my camera a little bit to get those settings to update. Oof. The interactivity on Karma is nuts. No global illumination yet, but really responsive for early stages. Yeah, so Redshift they're going to directly support the renderer in it, like if you use the dropdown. So you could see like already it's almost close to real time here. But basically it should be integrated even better under Solaris and the USD and all that stuff. So once that is like ready to go, it should be a lot of fun. But I think right now it's just too much like beta stage or whatever for me to play around with it too much. You think it crashes? I haven't actually set it up for Redshift, but I'm just assuming because it's like somewhat beta. It's a little too puny. This window is a little too puny. It's like just a little thumbnail. So I'm just trying to do some last minute tweaks and stuff before I do a test render. So low res test render. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a fan. I do this just because it's the only actual place where people look at the work you post. If it was up to me, I would do this this kind of resolution, like anamorphic or whatever. That's a lot easier to make your stuff look better that way, I think. Like the square aspect ratio is just the worst. I don't know if it's because everyone's gotten bored of it or if it's because it just doesn't lend itself as well. It's like watching a movie from the 1920s or whatever. So, I don't know, I mean, this might be just trying to think of a way that I don't want it to look, it looks way too similar to the PlayStation stuff right now. So I've been doing square, like I know you can kind of add the black bars and they have you might be able to get closer to like 16 by 9, but like I'd prefer to work very horizontal like this or something. Try more emission, more power. Taste the rainbow. Then I think with this velocity, the way that this velocity is calculating is it's doing backward difference. So if I do evaluate within frame range, this way it will make sure it's black on the first frame. Favored portrait photos for a while, like portrait orientations. I've never seen anyone like maybe phone. You're talking about portrait style like phone. I'm gonna try to make these lights a little bit more different. I think it was looking a bit odd being like so symmetrical. Depth of field might be a bit too extreme. All right. We're gonna do it. Yeah, the wide shots is the way to go. I saw during the start of the Houdini Toronto Hug today, they had a really nice looking anamorphic widescreen animation. So I'm not going to output any image just going to render this directly to the mplay buffer. And just make more samples. Should be pretty quick. I don't know. Let's see what happens. We're not doing too many particles. Like it's 50,000 or something. So each frame is super quick to cache for the GPU or whatever. But render's a little slow. I don't know. We'll leave it going. It's like 2 seconds a frame or something. I might need to go to ASUS here to get stuff matching up. I don't know. I've never done this. I don't know if I need to I don't know if I need to like generate the OCIO LUT, right? No? What do you think? It's on the bottom? This one? Ooh. Aha. And then how do I need to add it in preferences or something? 2 seconds is too slow? You think I could have sped it up a little bit, I think. Oh, okay, so it should be good. It looks closer. I think my monitor is just sRGB. We got something. I'm not super proud of it, but that's something somewhat cool within our thanks, you guys are enjoying it. I think it could be a little bit better, but I'm not going to spend a ton of time messing around with finessing the little details and stuff like that of it. Might be, I don't know, maybe like the camera's tracking through multiple shapes exploding like this. These are super quick to simulate, so you could set up like a sphere or a triangle and the camera could move through them, and then you would just always be like catching the more interesting parts of things blowing up. That might be a cool way to do it. I was also thinking of just like shrinking the particles after a certain time to clear up the frame. Jeff, thanks. I'm glad you learned something. Yeah, these CoolZone days aren't intended to be as like lecture or technical based, but I think it's still a good learning opportunity to see like actual work being done instead. I don't know, a lot of Houdini tutorials is just someone kind of reading an instruction manual to you and being like, so that's what this parameter does, that's what this does, that's what this does, but not showing you like good visual results from it or whatever. Yeah, I'm trying to show the process. I haven't seen a lot of people doing it even offline, but I feel like doing it live is cool, so you guys get to interact and everything. Yeah, so the schedule is below my stream, so it's at 1 p.m. Eastern, or I'm sorry, Pacific time, always. So far I might switch that, but we'll be doing Wednesday. Tomorrow is probably going to be like going back to doing some more bubble based effects, like continuing what we were doing on Wednesday, but trying to do something closer to Billy. Where is he? He might still be in here. Billy's reference of like the underwater air bubbles going up from like bullets, like bullet trails leaving bubbles behind, and then Sunday as well, and then take a break until Wednesday. Skadooks, there he is. Yeah, so I don't know. It might not be. I'm probably not going to post it right away. This thing to Instagram. I don't know. We'll see if it ever gets finished. But I'll post the scene file in the Discord, and hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Yeah, I don't know. This color is just burning out way too much. Merci, merci, garçon. Yeah, so probably just leave it here. Hope you guys have a good rest of your Friday.